Previously on episode 11 of the panel van, so it's been all go. So I've ran that 1mm blade along the timber. Now I've sanded up to that groove. And while I've been doing that, Darren's ripped apart this door. So the same process that we were doing with the tailgate, the only difference being with the door, it had lots of spot welds, which they do around the edge. And then this bracket here, there's two spot welds there that go into the frame. And on this other end, over the years we've found, rather than trying it, you can't get to that spot weld easily. So we cut through that bracket, and then when we put the skin back on, we'll weld that back on rather than trying to remove it. In all, pretty good result. A little bit of rust starting to happen in the corners where they traditionally go, but we're not going to have any metal work to do, which is nice. And down in these bottom corners, I'm not going to need to pull that apart because I've seen way worse than that haven't been done. And although this is an XC, it's a very early XC, so it's only got this single brace between here, whereas the later model XC had the really wide intrusion bar. And I was talking about the reinforcing on the XCs as well. We might put one of those in the back of that door so that it doesn't crack or anything, but all in all a good result. Righto, so like I mentioned, Darren's pulled these apart and we haven't done a whole lot of video on that. There is another complete video on how to remove a door skin on the channel, and we'll put a link in the description for that. So if you want to see the process and the tools we use and all that sort of stuff, you can go and have a look at it. What I wanted to show you now though is on the inside, you can see how nice this is all up in here, and even across where this, I won't call it an intrusion bar. On the later XCs, they had a really wide one. This is what was on the XA and XBs, but that's very clean, no rust. But the very bottom of the door, I know from my research, this car went under in the 96 Nyngan floods, and I would say this is the level that the water got to, and that's why that's sort of so distinct. And my only concern is where this double panel is, we might have some rust in the corner. So I'm going to paint strip the like the other side where, you know, this area here where you're going to see it. So we'll paint strip all that, see whether we have any potential rust issues with the corner. And then the skins themselves look really good considering the age of the car. Once again, you can sort of see where that water was, and there's a bit of rust in here, but nothing that's going to be a problem. So we'll paint strip these now. You can see over there, get the camera over that side, I put a little bit of paint stripper on that bitumen base stuff, and the stripper actually eats straight through that. So in the past you would have seen us doing it with a heat gun and a scraper. The reason I'm going to go with paint stripper is that you actually don't put any tension on the panel. So even if you're heating that up and you're rubbing it with a scraper, there's a reasonable chance you're actually changing the shape of the panel a little bit. So we're going to do that with stripper. We'll get them cleaned up, and as we do that, we'll keep the camera rolling and show you more. Righto, so I've had Steve on the paint stripper again. So as per previous, just the Bunnings special poly stripper. It's about 80 bucks a tin, and like I said earlier, I think it's beneficial for the panel and also on your arms and everything else. That this I have never thought of doing before, but for whatever reason, oh that's right, I dripped some on the inside of the car and it ate it off, and I went, how cool is that? So we've put a fair bit on here because this is really thick. It's like nearly a centimetre thick. So the idea of the plastic stops it drying out, and you can see there how thick that is, but that stripper is just eating into that. So with no effort at all, and I've seen everybody talking about everything from dry ice, soda blasting, all sorts of things. Well, that's paint stripper. Now, how long's that been on there, Steve? Nearly an hour. So we put plenty on it, and we've just done that really thick area. And what I'm going to do now is bring that plastic back over, and then bring it back, put all that in the jar, and then we'll do another coat. So this one we did the same process. So the first coat took the heavy off, and then he's put a full coat over the whole lot with the plastic. Normally about 10 to 15 minutes for paint, and that's what we've got. So you can see where the bitumen was, it hasn't rusted, and where the normal, most of this area probably had no paint or very little paint on it. And what we'll do now is I'll run over that probably with a Scotch-Brite on the machine. If there's any deep crusty rust, I'll use some of that blue gel, so we'll show you that as we do it. Righto, so I'm making a bit of progress with the paint stripper. So Steve and I have been trying to work together on these. So this is the first coat with the plastic on it, and there's some areas that had some old repairs, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to show you guys why we keep talking about sealing up bare metal before you put your filler on. So if you have a look at this old repair, you've basically got your filler in this area, and then the red or the burgundy colour would have been the spray filler, so just a 1K spray filler that we used to all use, and then it's been blocked out, but you can see the rust here. So I'm going to put some more stripper on it in a minute, and we'll just see what we come up with. But you can tell where that's been ground. You know, 36 grit used to be the old theory, and then put your filler over. So you can see there, and this car was originally from Nyngan, so I have no doubt that it was also in an environment where there wouldn't have been a lot of humidity. So even out in a dry environment, you're still going to get that rust coming back when you put the filler over the top of your bare metal. Righto, so I've put more stripper on there. It's interesting with the body filler that the actual paint stripper will eat into that. It's a little bit slower than paint, but you can put it on and then take it off. So it took a couple of goes and it wasn't overly thick. But you can see here, the body filler was actually here where there's not so much rust, but around it is the issue. And I think that's probably because when they've put the spray putty on, they would have rubbed that wet, and then the moisture goes through the primers and the spray putty and gets to the bare metal, and that's where the rust comes from. So you can see the sand marks from the 36 or 40 grit, and then obviously filler and then spray putties. That's why we've got to use epoxy. Righto, so I showed you previously about this double panel here. So this car I know had gone under in the floods in the 90s, and I don't know how long it was sitting underwater, but you can tell there where that bottom section of the door is rusty. Now we've sanded, a lot of that's just dirt. We've sanded it back with a bit of Scotch-Brite there, and it's come up pretty clean. But I was a bit concerned about this double panel, and I didn't want rust in behind that because it is a bit of a trap. So I've been able to remove that, and you can see there, that's the reason that we go through this process to get rid of all of this rust. And it's not that big a job once you sort of know what you're doing. And part of the thing that I find makes life a lot easier, if you paint strip stuff, you end up, and if you sandblast it, you lose part of this, but if you paint strip it, you end up seeing exactly where those spot welds are. So that's enabled me to mark the ones here with a nice sharp spot weld drill. I've just gone through and removed those welds. Now, if you're sort of struggling to get it off, even though you think you've drilled them all, if you get a punch like that one, just put it on the hole and give that a hit with the hammer. It just helps to release any little bit that might be left. And the other reason that I've taken this off is actually got quite a dent through here. There's a crease running through that panel, and I don't quite know how that would have come about. I haven't seen it before, but that there should be straight, and for some reason it's either the door's had a hit, and where the hinge bolt's on, it's taken the brunt and bent it. So I'll straighten that up, clean all of that metal up, put some weld through primer probably on the inside there, and then we'll weld it back in before we clean it up and paint it all. Bit more progress on them doors. So I removed those corner pieces, and I took the the bolts out, or the plates with the threads in it out of it as well. Cleaned all them up, painted them with a bit of epoxy, and I've painted in the back there so that I can redo the spot welds. I'll plug those all back up, I'll clamp it up. One of them was bent a bit, I straightened that up as well. And I've grabbed a couple of these reinforcing plates out of stock. I'm going to weld them in as well. And they're something that came along from the factory in XC. And the reason for that is that the ends of these doors normally crack, and you can see here, this one's just started to crack. So I'll be able to TIG those up and then put the bracing in from the back. So all of that outside there, I've cleaned that up. We paint stripped them first, and then I've gone through and done that with a range of things. But the finish you see there now is off the strip disc, like a Scotch-Brite on a 4-inch grinder, and also the little Mercer with a Scotch-Brite. So that's those two there. And a little bit of mesh I had in the cupboard, a bit of 180. So we've done the inside all along the bottom where it was all been collecting water, and then all up in here, the brown here is the brown paint. So we're just giving that a clean up, bit of a sand with a bit of 240, and then I'll prime all those insides before they go together. I've just run the TIG along those cracks, and I've just used a bit of 0.9 low tensile TIG wire with a 1mm tungsten. So that keeps the heat down, and because I'm putting the bracing in behind, I'm more than comfortable that that'll be a long-term fix. Righto, so I've got that bracket fairly well substantially clamped. And you can see there I've just cleaned these up, so you can see the centre of the spot weld when I drilled it out, so I know I'm back in the same position. And I'll hop in there now. I'll crank the MIG up because I've got plenty of thickness on this back one. It's probably 2mm, so I can crank the MIG up, plug them up, and then I'll sand them back. So I've plugged them up. Not overly pretty, but it doesn't need to be, because I'm going to grind the top off that with a 40 grit flapper now. So that'll come up nice. So we're fortunate enough to have a spot welder that I've been able to spot weld that in. So I've just used a bit of U-pole weld through primer. So I've got both of those done now. So to do that, I just put the long jaws onto the spot welder. That enabled me to go around the outside edge. So just about got these buggers done, and then I can think about getting them sealed up. Righto, both cleaned up. All them plug welds, got both the ends right. Just ran around here with a file and a bit of a die grinder just to make sure they're all nice and even. And that made them way stronger, putting them brackets in there. So the only thing left to do now really is just to go around and check. I always like to check all these holes that hold the rubbers and stuff on that are more often than not stripped. And any other dents that I can see in the shells. I've already spent a fair bit of time here. I might even try and tidy this up a bit, because when I go to paint it I won't be happy with that, so I might put a bit of heat on that and knock it back into itself. And then I should be ready to seal them up with some epoxy. Doors. Finally got these two ready. So I've had Steve on the deoxidine. So we've cleaned up the inside as much as I think they need to be done. They didn't really need to be completely bare metal. The outside, different story. I like to have all that nice. So Normally I would try and wet on wet the insides, but I'm sort of not ready, but I don't want them hanging around bare metal for too long. So I'm just going to put a couple of coats of DP616 epoxy urethane primer on them, and I'm doing that to seal them up so then they can sit. It's a bit like the other two sitting over here now, waiting on that door skin, so the boot skin, so you can sort of let them rest without worrying about the rust. So I'm just going to do that, put a couple of quick coats on them, and then keep working on the skins because I've still got a bit of rust to get rid of on the outside of those. So I'll shoot them and we'll be good to go. Not a lot that's more satisfying than taking a 47-year-old panel, pulling it apart, getting rid of all the crud and the rust, and then turning it into that. And I find that justifies the time and the effort, and sometimes the blood, to actually achieve that sort of result. So all I do now is do the skins, do the same thing, put some 2K on it, get them back together. Rust never goes away. This had some protection mouldings on it, and because it had sat so long, you can see down closely here, I've cleaned all this and I've run the wire wheel over it. See how there's still a few black pieces in there? Really concerned on the outside of a panel to leave that there. Now, this particular product I found really good. This has had a little bit of use. Normally when it comes out it's like a light aqua colour, but you can reuse it. So I must have used this lightly on something. So it is a gel, but it will run a bit. So I've made a little dam up there, and I'm just going to leave this on for probably an hour or two. And I'm not sure what's in it, but it says it's eco-friendly and all those sorts of things. And I, in the past, have found that wherever that edge is, so probably along that tape line, it'll actually, you can see where it's eaten into the metal a little bit. So I'm just going to lay that in so it's fully covered, and the tape's just there so it doesn't run all the way down the side of the panel. And like I say, I'll leave it for an hour or so, and then when I come back, I believe that all those little black dots will be gone. So it's just part of that. You can see there, down through the gel, you can actually see those black dots standing out a bit more now that that stuff's on there. Picasso. Righto, so that's been a couple of hours. Now, what I'm going to do is just pick that up and I'll put it back into the same jar because, like I said earlier, you can reuse it. So my little dam's work good, it hasn't run all over the place. So it's been about 2 hours. And what I'm looking for is a bit further up here where it's had some of those black marks. Now I'd already wide wheel these on the drill and none of that black had come out. Now looking at that now, I think that will all come out. If not, I could just leave it a little bit longer, but I'm thinking I'll just grab a bit of rag. So looking in there now, that's very clean. So once again, it's trying to let the chemicals do the work rather than slave it away and making a mess of the metal. So I'm very happy with that. Look at that. So I'll get the rest of it cleaned up and Scotch here, do the deoxidine and we can get it straight into some epoxy. Righto, so all them panel frames and the skins are now all prepped and they've been deoxidined, the bare metal stuff. So this is the new skin. Came out a little bit different to the others, but I'm happy with the way that's come out. So this had the DP616 on it. I've given it a 240 because I'm going to put the CF black epoxy over the lot. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can just then put some 2K on it without having to have to prime it, because it's just the insides and I'm just trying to seal it up for rust prevention. So I'll get my gear on, mix up some product and give it a hit. There we go. Almost looks a bit too good for inside, but that's what happens when you put direct gloss on, I guess. It's going to be glossy. So that's using my effectively primer gun, my fine primer 1.4. So they're all done inside. And then these come up pretty good as well. Pretty straight, got a few little nibs here and there where they've had a bit of rust, but in general terms, pretty darn good. Righto, so I'm just trying to work those so that when Darren's here in a week's time, we'll be able to put all those back together. And I'll just wait till he's here because with the two of us together, we can get them together quite quickly. Righto, so now's the time to try and put it all back together. So a couple of things that I've done that's worth thinking about is I just ran a tap through the threads that hold the door hinges on, because if there's an issue with those, it's a lot easier to fix now because I've got access. So I just run those through all the threads, make sure I'm not going to have a problem later on. And the reason I do that is because from the factory, the bolts that go in there are like a self-locking, they're like a triangular shaped bolt. So they tend to pull the threads a bit. So I've done that. I reckon I've got everything else ready to go. Now I've left the outside of the door skin in bare metal because once I roll these over, I'm going to be hammering pretty heavily around the edge. And the idea is to get it on. Once I actually put it on, I'm not going to weld these spots up until such time as I've sat the door back on the car. So I'll put the hinges back on it and I'll put it on the car, because until such time as you weld all of these, you can actually twist the frame. All right, so you can put it on and you'll see on some cars sometimes the front's aligned properly and the back, you know, sits out at the bottom where the sill is. This enables you to actually twist the frame, get it into position and then start welding it all back together. So I think I'm pretty much set up, ready to go. I've got Steve on the standby and we're just going to sit it on, turn it over, and then I'll start rolling that edge back over. Now, take that bottom edge, Steve. So I've just got to get this little bracket here to get back into here, which fits back up in there where it come from. And then the other end has got to slide in from underneath, and then we'll go forward. We had a little practice run before to make sure we could do it, because part of the problem is always the fact that someone else pulled it off and now I'm putting it on. Just hold that. No, you're right. So you just got to watch your fingers, because if it gets jammed in there, it's a bit nasty. I normally have gloves on actually. Right. So now that's just going to sit over there, and I'll just get a steel ruler or a scraper and put in there. Just to get that to go over. Okay, very close. Right, so now if we flip that over, Steve, the weight of that frame will hold it down. So what I'm going to do now is just go around, double check, put some clamps on it. And when I say double check, I'm going to look and line up my spots where I drilled the hole. You can see there where it corresponds. So I'll go around, get everything lined up. You can see there where we've got to weld this bracket back on. So it's got to go down a couple of mil. So we'll just get it all in place, clamp it up, and then we'll come back, turn the camera back on and do a bit more. Well, there you go. People always say to me, is it any harder when you're trying to film and do your work and talk and all the rest of it? Yeah, it is, because I just put the skin on. Unfortunately, I didn't start hammering it, and I hadn't put the sealer on it. So people always ask me what I use. I've been using this for some time. It's an automotive sealer. It's not actually an adhesive. And I'm just going to run a bead along here where the factory had it. Now I'm not going to put it anywhere else because the factory didn't have any on this outside edge, and as I've already said, I want to be able to move the door and give it a bit of a twist. So I'm just going to put a reasonable bead on here, and I'm doing that because it really is like an anti-rattle almost, and I guess this just gives it a little bit of support. The later XCs actually had quite a large intrusion bar. It was obviously a change in the ADRs, and it's got a panel that's about this wide on it, so that would make a massive difference. This one here is quite flexible, and I'd say it's probably more to do with making this length correct when they put the skin on at the factory than it is having anything to do with stopping the door skin moving around. So when we put this back on now, we've got to make sure we don't drop it down before we get it in position, otherwise it's going to be glue everywhere. Righto. Now I'm going to put that around the way I had it. Seeing I've already done it once that way, it might be a bit easier. Third time lucky. No, that'd be close, I think. No, Steve, should be able to lower that down there. It'd get real easy if you're doing 10 a day, wouldn't it? Righto. So now we'll go back to where we were. Get our alignment right, and then we'll come back and finish it off. Righto, so I've lined up all my brackets, so you can see here where that spot weld was drilled out. I've put that back in exactly the same place. all the way around the edges, it's all sitting on nice. And then the last bracket, which is one that we cut to try and avoid, because this bracket here fits in around the back and spot welded on, so we normally just cut it through there to save a bit of effort. So now that'll get welded back on. So I've got a spot there, I'm going to weld that one, and then I'm going to start hammering. Now, people often say to me they're surprised that I paint everything, then I've got to weld it. But I just work on the basis I'm a whole lot better off if I've done all that, even though the weld's going to affect a little bit here and there. So yes, it does burn the paint, but at the same token, if I put nothing on it, we'd be in the same position the factory left us in. Righto, so I'm going to hammer and dolly this back on now. Someone made a comment the other day on like a question on the channel about have I got an air tool for putting door skins on and off and that sort of stuff. The reality is, you know, I do one car every, I don't know, year and a half maybe. So I could have a lot more tools than I've got, but I just don't have enough use. So in a lot of cases, what I'm doing might not be the quickest or the simplest way, but it's the way I've adapted to being able to do it without having 100 grand's worth of tools. I've got a lot of tools, I just don't have every tool. So I'm going to do this hammer and dolly. Now I've got a couple of dollies out, and I've done that because these two are very similar. Let's see how this one's got a very sharp line on it, where this one, all the lines are more radiused. Now if I'm going to hold that under there, as I go around and dolly that on, I don't really want this sharp edge because I've got more chance of doing damage if I've got a sharp edge. So I'm looking to use this one, and then I've got a few different hammers. If I've got lots of room, this is not a bad hammer. It's got a bit of a radius on it, doesn't do a lot of scarring. I think it came in my original Sid Chrome set. And then I've got a couple of panel hammers, so a round one, and the square one's pretty good if you get into a tight area. And then this little one here, it's pretty good. Probably won't need it on here, but if you get into a corner like that, you can hammer into that corner with it. So never got too many hammers, and that's how I'm going to do. So I'll put some earmuffs on and I'll start tapping it up. It's the same story as taking it off. You don't want to knock it all the way down on the corner here because then you're going to stretch the metal. So it's work your way along backwards and forwards, get it all over, and then we'll have a look on the other side and see how we went. I've just got a tiny bit of pressure up against that, just so that it's sort of holding everything without it rocking around. I'm not trying to push against it. And I'm trying not to flatten this edge here, because on the back face it's got a little lip where we've pulled it back, and that lip actually goes away as you knock it back over. So I'm just trying to move it over with the hammer touching on this outside edge. So that's a little tiny bit done. And now I'm just going to make a lot of noise. Everyone can put their, hide in their little spots, and I'll work my way around there and get that done. And then we can do the others and then start putting them back on. Righto, so one of the issues when you get a bit close like here, it's really hard to hammer. So what I've got here is just a bit of mild steel. It's probably about 10 mil by the look of it. I'm just sitting that on there like that and hammering this way. So I've got Steve holding that because I don't have 3 hands, and we'll just work our way along. And you just require enough pressure under there so we're not belting it onto the stand all the time on the skin. And if someone says I'm choking the hammer, yes I am, because I want to have good control and I don't want to hit my thumb. So we're going to do that, and then the same around here. Got the same problem. I've got this little lip, and if I'm going to hammer that this way, I've got a good chance I'm going to put all little kisses in that, and then I'm going to have to repair those with filler. So same deal, I'm going to run that block along there to do that one, so that just so I'm not catching this edge, because I'm trying to do the least amount of damage as possible. Right, so lots of hammering, worked our way around. So you can see there, I've just run the Scotchy around that to give you an idea what sort of finish you're going to end up with. Now you're going to get a few little dents and things just because it's been prized off and then hammered back on. Once we get this on the car and align it and weld these up, then when I go to do my bodywork, I'll just put a little skim of light filler on there and sand that up so it's a nice factory looking finish. And then what I always find interesting is when you actually then put that door this way around, when I do my steel ruler check as I always do, you can see there that that edge is not too bad and there's perfect. So the fact that we've pulled this up and it tends to leave this little lump, once we've put it back on, it's all looking pretty good. So where that's a little bit over, I can knock that up, but I'm not going to do any of that until I actually get it on the car and see how this aligns with the quarter, because I might need to push it out a bit to meet with the quarter, or I might need to push it in a bit. So I'll leave that. I'm really happy with the way it's come up, and that'll pretty much finish up this week, and then we'll get all of these together and then start working on probably alignment and getting a bit of filler into this roof and those sorts of things. Now, before I forget, can you make sure you subscribe, click the like button and ask any questions you like, because I answer all the questions, because we want to keep growing the show and we need your help to do that. So click subscribe, do what they ask you to do and ask a question and I'll get back to you.